There are few qualities more important than gratitude. It's huge. Now we speak about it and we say cute little aphorisms like, the attitude of gratitude, but we don't appreciate its importance enough to focus on it, to stay grateful. So we say it's important, but we don't actually believe it. It is impossible, for example, to be grateful and miserable, grateful and hateful, grateful and angry, grateful and vengeful. You can't do it. You got to lose the gratitude first. And then, every negative feeling is possible. Ingratitude, the lack of gratitude, is the cause of entitlement. Entitled people only want more. They feel no gratitude for the present. They've lost all sense of gratitude. I want more. I'm entitled to more. I'm me. And I haven't gotten enough. That's what entitlement is. Anger is not getting what I want, which presupposes that I'm not grateful for what I have. So I'm going to choose to be angry instead of grateful. As soon as I choose to be just over the top grateful for what I have, you can see this every day. So a child who has been taught how to be grateful gets half of a piece of candy. And they just look like, wow, it's Christmas. With an entitled child or angry child, you give them half a piece of candy and they're going, well, where's the other half? Actually, while we're at it, come to think of it, where's the bag? Or as they would say in Canada, the bag. The bag, yeah. I think you have to be Canadian to say that right. It's the cause of contention, the lack of gratitude. Because what are we doing? Arguing over a sense of lack. That's why I'm contending with you. I don't have enough. No, I'm not grateful for what I have. Now, if I'm starving to death, I may not have enough. But I'm grateful for at least what I have and the ability to talk to you about some way we could work it out where we could both have more. Without gratitude, you will have contention, regret of the past, instead of grateful for what I had, which is a little different from what I have, but not a lot. Worry is a fear of an unknown future instead of feeling grateful for the present. And look around, baby. There's not a lot of gratitude in the world. Pick up a People magazine and see how many references to gratitude you find in the magazine, as opposed to salacious, titillating, scandalous details. Look at people shopping who want more and more and more. Look at conversations, impatience, anger, demands, all absolute proof of a lack of gratitude. One indication of our lack of gratitude, just one, pick one out of. There was not long ago a Wikipedia campaign. Once a year, they asked people for money, and it turns out that if everybody who used Wikipedia contributed, I can't remember the number, $3.50 or something like that, then Wikipedia would be funded for the year. It might have been less. And in one of their little campaign things, it was stated that, actually, I don't even think it was in the campaign thing because it would be really negative. I read it somewhere else, that for each person who contributes to financially to the continued running of Wikipedia, because you don't have to pay for that information. You can go to Wikipedia and yes, it's not monitored and there are mistakes in Wikipedia. Yeah, I get it. But we use it all the time to gather information. For each one person who contributes financially, anything, $3, that counts. To the running of Wikipedia, there are, guess how many people who use Wikipedia without contributing financially. This is just a measure of gratitude. It really is. If I'm grateful for a thing, then I go, well, you provide this service here. But I tip the guy who brings me my car at the hotel because I'm grateful that he did it, because he just ran 100 yards that I didn't have to find it wherever it is. How many people don't pay for each person that pays? Pause. 200. Hello? I know you're making this number up. No, I'm not. 200 to 1. We're not grateful for what we even use routinely. It's just something to consider. You can't make other people grateful, but we can choose to be grateful ourselves. We can teach our children to be grateful, which we do really, really poorly. Like, we say, now say thank you. I have never one time, when a parent says, now say thank you to the man, seen a child look up at the man and beaming, spontaneously say, gosh, thanks. That's a score of 0. If you want to learn how to teach children gratitude, read the Real Love and Parenting book. No kidding. New subject. A couple of times I've used the expression with people that I'm talking to, you're complaining. All I heard you do for the last several minutes is whine and complain. Stop complaining and solve the problem. Now, why? Am I trying to control somebody? Am I getting annoyed by their whining? Nah, it's just stupid. I'm going to get this story wrong because I heard it so long ago, but a guy comes up to a front porch in an old shack out in the woods, and there's a guy sitting in a rocking chair, and his dog is sitting next to him, and he's just howling. And the guy who's visiting finally says, what's wrong with your dog? And the man rocking in the chair says, oh, he's sitting on a nail. And the visitor's going, well, why doesn't he just get up off the nail? And the guy rocking in the chair says, well, I guess he will when he's tired of it. If you don't understand the humor of that joke, you don't understand yourself. Because we repeat stupid behaviors. We complain about things, the dog howling, instead of solving the problem a lot. I listen to people complain about politics. Blah, 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 blah. Do something about it then. Contribute to your local politics. Get out there and campaign for somebody you think would do a better job. Write your congressman. Do something. But I hate this, and isn't he or she stupid that, well, I've just never seen anything magically change from whining. Oh, I have. You can make an entire room miserable by whining. I have seen that. That's actually almost miraculous. A whole room full of smiling people, and you can come in and start whining, and you can turn the whole room into a combat zone. It's that effective. Only recently, I remembered a story from when I was a kid that illustrates what I just said. Stop complaining and solve the problem. It happened a very long time ago. I mean, oh my goodness, 45 years ago, something like that. My father was in the process of selling the house where they lived, a house where I lived during 4 years of high school. Those were the only years I lived there. My siblings lived there longer because they were younger. The realtor said that the property value was being depressed, the property value of my dad's house, by the condition of the house next door to theirs. The yard just looked like awful. It wasn't painted. It really looked kind of abandoned. And the reason was fairly justifiable. The person who lived there was a quite elderly woman, although remember I was a teenager at the time, and people who were 32 were quite elderly, but I remember she had white hair and could hardly walk to the mailbox, so I'm thinking, 80. She was elderly. She wasn't going to get up on a 32-foot ladder and paint the house herself. And she didn't have an independent source of income. She was living on whatever Social Security was. And she wasn't going to get out and mow the yard. She could barely limp her way to the mailbox. So the place looked awful. So what did my father do? Now, what most people would do is just go, I can't sell my house. I'm going to lose value in my house because that stupid woman who doesn't hire somebody, which of course she couldn't afford to do, to fix that. I mean, look at that yard. That's not grass. Those are called dandelions. That's called crabgrass. I'm not making this up because I've heard all these complaints before, firsthand. They would complain themselves to death and nothing would change. And they would sell their house at a depressed value and be stupid. Because it is stupid. It's not, people say, well, we can't use that word. Well, is it smart? No. Well, then what's left? Not smart? There's a word for not smart. Stupid. So what did he do? He knew she wasn't going to be able to do anything about it. He didn't complain about it. He just solved the problem. How do you do that? Now, admittedly, this isn't going to solve everybody's problems, but it's an illustration of how you just do something. It wasn't his job to fix up her house, but it was his job to not complain about it. That's his choice. So he went over there, I remember, and he painted the house and he did the yard work. Now, he says, admittedly, I didn't do 2 coats of paint on the house, which would have lasted longer. I painted the house just enough so that it looked like it was painted. Well, okay. But he was solving a problem. He wasn't solving her problem, he was solving his. So he painted the house, he did the yard work, got rid of the weeds, planted the grass. I can't remember all the stuff that he did, but he solved it until the house was sold at the value that it should have been, which that long ago was, probably $9.50. Complaining is not a step. Memorize that phrase. Complaining is not a step. So I got to climb Mount Everest if I'm absolutely compelled to do that. And I'm up there and it's hard to breathe and I'm getting altitude sickness and I'm climbing higher and higher and it's getting colder, windier, less oxygen, and I'm whining about it. Well, and then I get to a place, and I've done this because I've been a scout leader, for many years. I've been on hikes where a boy has just stopped and said, I can't go any further out in the middle of the wilderness. And then we have a little discussion about, it's pretty hard. And we got another, about 16 and a half miles to walk. So you can complain about it, or you can take the next one step. Now, if you want to just sit here and complain about it, that's okay. But by the time we get to where we're going and we come back, it being bitter cold and all, and since we're not going to be leaving behind our tents and our sleeping bags for you to sleep in, you might be dead. So I don't know. What do you think? You want to take a step forward or you want to die? Which is comparable to our lives. We die emotionally when we sit and complain. So you want to solve something? Do something. Complaining is not a step. New subject. I didn't do this intentionally, but the word step seems to be repeating itself. Not a day goes by, really, that somebody doesn't ask me, what is my next step? Every day. How can I grow more? I've answered this here on video chats in, I don't know, several thousand different ways. This is just another way to answer that same question because it's asked so often. Why is it asked that often? We're going to integrate this into something we talked about at the top. Actually, in the last video chat, come to think of it. We asked the question, what is my next step? Because nobody ever taught us the course of life. Nobody ever did. Trigonometry, history, the date of the signing of the Magna Carta, which, even though I've looked it up, I still can't remember. I don't know, 524, something close to that. It's hard to say because it was signed and then the king said, well, heck with that, and threw it away, and they had to do it again. But we learn history and trigonometry and stuff that makes no difference in our lives. I did really well. I got a great grade in advanced calculus. Really. I couldn't even write a differential equation now. So that didn't help me. Almost none of the courses I ever took helped me. But nobody ever taught me a course in life, which I could use pretty much every day, every hour. So people ask the question, what's my next step? Because they don't know what it is. Nobody taught them anything. Nobody taught them how to live. Nobody taught them the laws of happiness, which we talked about in the last video chat. I'm having an unusually strong memory of the last one. So here's one answer. I've answered it 1,000 different ways, easily, just on these video chats. First, find somebody who appears to genuinely care about you. Just even has the appearance of caring about you. For many people, there isn't anybody. But if you're listening to this chat, there are other people who are listening to this chat who would be willing to talk to you. And if you go to the website, there are names of people that would be willing to talk to you. So you can find such a person. Find somebody who just even appears to genuinely care about you. Where there is ample evidence that they do. Not they like you because you paid them some money. That's not caring, that's trading. Ignore the times that they might misunderstand you or make mistakes, because what we tend to look for is somebody who perfectly loves us. And I wish you well with that endeavor, but I don't know anybody like that. Pay attention to the overall pattern of their lives. Do they speak harshly and condescendingly to other people? No. Are they overall grateful? Yeah. Are they angry? No. Well, there's some evidence that they might be capable of caring. See the pattern, then assume that they're either loving you or willing to try. This takes some faith to do, some trust. It's a risk, yes, but not really, because not looking for somebody who can care about you is guaranteed to fail. So we have the risk of being rejected, the risk of not being loved by going out and looking for somebody, or we have a risk, I don't know, this big, somewhere in here, or we have the absolute certainty that you won't be loved if you don't go and find such a person. That just doesn't look really hard for me. Kind of like me being at the edge of a cliff and it's 30 feet to the water, and if you've ever jumped off 30-foot cliff, the highest I've ever jumped is 77 feet, and I thought that would kill me. 30 feet is enough to, rip your shirt off you. You really hit the water pretty hard. Well, why take such a risk? Well, what if there's a forest fire burning behind you? So your risks are you will die in the fire, or you might sprain an ankle or whatever by jumping into, let's just assume it's a deep pool rather than, a little creek where you're going to die there too. I'm going to jump off the cliff. And pretty much everybody would. And yet some people would stand there. They would just stand there in one spot and die and burn up because they're afraid. That's been proven, by the way. People will stay in their house and burn to death rather than jump out of a second-story window, where pretty much the worst that's going to happen to you is you're going to, break your ankle. I know there's worse, but we're going to assume that there's not, rebar sticking up and it's going to impale you from head to toe. It's a risk worth taking. Find somebody who appears that they can love you. 2, decide that there are principles and feelings that you would need to learn in order to be happy. In other words, make a commitment that you're going to participate in this project of, being happier. Seems reasonable. If you want to be happier, you'd participate. 3, decide that you need to be taught those principles, that you can't do it on your own, which should be fairly obvious, because if you're listening to me right now, you have some need to improve your life. Well, we really can't pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. You can't reach down and lift your feet off the floor. It requires some help. And there's some principles you just can't learn on your own. 4, decide. Notice all these are decisions. Decide to find somebody. Decide there are principles you need to learn. Decide you need to be taught. This is all within your choice. The most important principle is what? Choosing. 4th, decide that you'd like to be taught by that person who understands and loves you. Make that decision, including with their mistakes. We're all looking for the perfect teacher. There aren't any. It's really not more complicated than that. It's trusting that person that just seems scary. Because every person we trusted when we were really little, when we were having the world defined for us, betrayed us in some way. All a child has to do is see this. They reach up to be held by a parent, and the parent goes, I'm busy. Which means you're worthless. I don't care about you. And children ain't stupid. They got it. They go, got it. I'm not worth being held. Well, then if I'm not worth being held, I'm not worth much of anything at all. So this is a real exercise in faith for you to trust somebody that they can love you, including with their mistakes. Nobody has ever been that trustworthy before. Trustworthy. So it's a stretch to make that assumption now. And that stretch has a name. Faith. Trust. I study words for a living. There's no difference between the two words. One tends to be used more in religious settings, but nope, they're no different. Try it. Let me know how it goes. Really. I'll read your email on the video chat. New subject. I was telling my husband, this is a woman writing, I was telling my husband, Tom, about some feelings that I've been having. Tom did his best to listen, but he kept changing what I was saying to words that had a very different feel from what I was trying to convey. So I would say, in other words, she would say something, and he would attempt to do what they call, I really hate the term, but reflective listening. Why do I hate the term? Because in reflective listening, you reflect back what you're hearing. And so if somebody is like exploding, their hair is on fire, they're saying they hate whatever it is, then often in reflective listening, the other person says, so I hear that you're angry. Not helpful. Really. But he was trying to listen, and, bless him for trying. But what he was reflecting wasn't what she was saying. She continues, I tried to communicate again, but I wasn't succeeding. Sometimes it's far better to just let somebody not understand you. Who says that everybody should? Who says that everybody could? There are some things about my own life that I could not explain to you in words that you would understand. I couldn't do it. I would be articulate. I would practice. I would write it down. I would revise it, edit it. Knowing who you are, try to put it in language that's more and you wouldn't understand what I was saying because you weren't there. It's one of many reasons that most combat veterans, not just veterans, I was in the Air Force for 3.5 years as a surgeon. And sometimes people will say, raise your hand if you're a veteran. And often I don't raise my hand because I'm going, I ain't that kind of veteran. Veteran simply means you served in the armed forces. But, let's just say the closest I came to under fire was my boss raising his voice at me. I don't feel like a veteran. People who have been in combat, this has been my experience, and I've spoken to many people who have been. Many. On the whole, they don't talk about their experiences. I know people who, when they die at age 80, their family says, we don't know anything about his military service. Not one thing. He never talked about it. Partly, it's because it's painful to talk about. Talk about your best friend just kind of blowing up next to you or watching his head pop off. Or partly it's painful. And partly they don't talk about it because nobody would understand. They would say, and there were bullets whizzing around us. Nobody can understand what that means. Which means you can be just randomly killed by a randomly fired bullet at any time. And it's not like in the movies. When they shoot a AK-47, in the movies it goes bang, 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 bang. Well, I had a military assault rifle once, and only one time, just to see, me and the kids all took our earplugs out and fired it once. And we couldn't hear each other talk for some time. That's once. There's some things that people can't describe. There's some things you can't describe to somebody else in a way they'd understand. They don't have the life experience. They may not care enough. I'm not saying they don't, but multiple factors, they can't get it. So sometimes it's better to just shut up. They won't understand. If you persist in trying to get somebody to understand you when they clearly don't, like your husband can repeatedly summarizing what you're saying in ways that show that he doesn't get it. If you persist, it becomes really frustrating for you. And the more you persist, well, your voice has a tendency to rise and the volume has a tendency to rise and the language becomes a little more harsh, actually harsher, that'd be grammatically correct. And it becomes frustrating for them. And since I know the woman who's writing, I'm telling her, you particularly have a tendency to keep going until somebody understands you, no matter who it is. I've watched you persist in explaining a thing to somebody that a person you'll never see again, and you just keep going. You're relentless. And it becomes wearing on the person. I don't mind if you keep explaining things to me. I'm willing to keep going until I get it right. Or right. Until you feel understood. That'd be a better way to say it. But you got to get it into your head that you can't be understood every time. It's not possible. You continue. This morning, Tom, her husband, spoke up about another subject and said, I think you didn't like it when I misunderstood you earlier. Now, she gave me her response to what he just said. He said, we've moved on. I think you didn't like it when I misunderstood you earlier. And then she responded. I'm not going to give you her response because it was about 2 pages long. I'm not kidding. It just... And what she did was she tried to explain what he misunderstood earlier again. But she thought it would work better with 1,000 words than it did previously with 300 2 or 3 times. Well, guess what? It didn't work. Now, going back to talking to her, right here, right now, is where you would benefit enormously by learning to be quiet. He's not going to get it. He didn't get it after a total of, I'm going to rough it out, about 1,800 words. He didn't get it. I write, and so I can quantify words just as I'm listening to people, although I don't sit and count them. But you insist on clarity or understanding. And see, it sounds good, doesn't it? Well, I just want to be clear. Yeah, except he just proved he was deaf. Watch people, especially Americans, in a foreign country, and they say, where is the Hotel Raphael? And the person goes, I don't know, I don't speak English in whatever their language is. And so the American says it louder and slower, as though they were either, the other person, deaf or stupid. It doesn't work better the second time. Well, but I was just trying to be clear. Well, you didn't succeed. And you looked a little dumber the second time, just saying. And the third time, you looked positively hilarious. You tend to demand understanding. You tend to demand clarity. You could have just said, when he said, I think you didn't like it when I misunderstood you, you could have just said, I'm fine. You listened to me and demonstrated that you were willing to listen. I'm grateful, which was a subject we talked about a lot in the last video chat. And then you're done. Hang on, I'm going to count this. You used 1,800 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8 words. 8 versus 1,800. And the result will end up being, a lot happier. Like as in, you might get a kiss and a hug. I'm fine. You cared about me. I'm grateful. Stop. No more analysis, thinking, talking, persuading. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to you. It's exhausting to him, which I happen to know from watching him as you explain things to him with clarity. Just stop. Tom. Now, I'm quoting Tom as she's telling me he's speaking. So, did he actually say it this way? Well, we don't care. The story still works. So, after she went on for 2 pages, he says, it just seems like I can't get anything right with you. Which is, he's kind of telling you that you used too many words. If you'd used those 8 words, he'd have been just happy as pie. Or, excuse me, happy as somebody eating pie. 1,800 words didn't work. 8 would have. You said, oh, well, it feels like you want to fight. The appropriate number of words at this point would have been 0. Because this conversation isn't working. Or, hey, I made a mistake in the way I communicated. I don't know how many words that is, but it's not very many, and we're done. It's almost like because I watched you. It's like you want to pick a fight and win. Well, that's one way to feel important, but wow, it's exhausting and it sure annoys people. I have a suggestion, and you don't have to take it. And I don't need to explain it until it's clear. Sorry, there was a little bit of sarcasm there. The suggestion is less. Actually, it's not less. It's fewer and fewer words. Fewer and fewer. Practice it. Practice saying what you're going to say. And in most of the time, if you can't say what you're going to say in 2 sentences, you don't understand it. And if you don't understand it, he's not going to. When I sold my first book to the largest publishing house in the world, I sat down with my editor, and he said, the subject of the title of my book was, he was going to buy the book, and the subject was the truth about relationships, and then some long subtitle, blah, 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 blah. And he said, what's your book about? And I started to explain. I must have got, 50 words, which is nothing, into the explanation. And he went, put his hand up, which everybody pretty much understands means, stop, like shut up. And he said, your book is about real love. I said, ouch. I didn't say the ouch part out loud. I said, yep. And he says, and yet, real love isn't in the title. And I sat there feeling exceptionally stupid and grateful that he did that. So for you, same thing. Use fewer and fewer words. Have fewer expectations and lesser expectations, and be grateful for him. Oh, my dear, if you're grateful for him, you're going to get, a 1,000-fold reward over demanding clarity. Promise. I know it's tempting because you deserve to be heard and understood. You do. But that doesn't give any of us the right to insist on being heard and understood at any given time from any given person. That is so important, I'm going to say it again. We all deserve to be heard and understood because we're worthwhile. But that, our deserving that doesn't give us the right to insist on being heard and understood at any given time from any given person. That's called entitled. New subject. This is from a lady who's writing and says, my siblings and I, unknown to each other, each got our DNA analysis through a genealogy organization that told us about where our bloodlines come from. This has become quite a business. People thought they were from South America, and it turns out their family all came from South Saudi Arabia. There's some real surprises that come in here from time to time. She continues, everybody's national origins were almost the same because it turns out that if you're siblings, well, then your national origins should be identical, right? Because you didn't have different parents. And then their parents would have the same parents. They should be the same. But they've done some tests, some experiments where they've sent in a DNA swab, or they use saliva, or you rub your cheek or something. They've done some experiments where they've sent in 2 samples from the same person and gotten completely different results. What am I saying? I don't know. I'm just saying you can't always count on them. The lady continues. Everybody's national origins were almost the same except for mine. Mine are very different, which means that at least one of my parents is different from the others. maybe I would suggest you resubmitting a sample to a different organization before you make a conclusion. That's kind of like scientific method. So you continue. What should I do now? Do I confront my mother? My father is dead. Do I tell the family? Do I ask questions? Do I get to the bottom of this? Well, do you like your life relatively well as it is? You're not going to like it if you add drama to it. Don't add drama to this, except in rare cases where perhaps genetic diseases might be involved. What do you care? Your life is what it is, no matter who your parents are. You have to decide that, though. I'm not telling you what to do. Not my right. You have to decide whether your knowing your medical history is worth upsetting your mother possibly a great deal. But keep in mind, you're going to get another sample. And you may end up being just like all the rest of your siblings. Do that before you go make any decision. And she might not know where your father is, assuming that your father is different. At this point, we don't know anything. But I can give you a guide. The first one would be get another sample. But the second would be, on the whole, don't add fear to this. Don't do drama. And then make a medical decision. Is this sufficiently important for me to know my possible genetic history? If your mother doesn't know where your blood father is, what good is it going to do for you to know that you have a different blood father? What changes in your life? Unless you're, interested in creating drama and upsetting the whole family. Fill your life with love. That is a law of happiness. Fill your life with love. That is also the definition of a real family, not the DNA that you carry around with you. New subject. The world is one enormous circus of distractions. It's almost beyond belief what is available to us now. As a kid, it was exciting. The greatest excitement for me was to get on my, you won't even know what I'm talking about unless you're old. Get on my bicycle, which had one gear. There was none of this fancy derailleur stuff that where you had 21 gears, to climb a mountain or to fly down one. It had one gear, and if the hill was steep enough, you just got off your bike and you walked it up to the top of the hill. I would get on my bike and just ride around the whole town. That was like high adventure. Kids now have thousands of distractions. They can communicate with almost anybody in the world through multiple media simultaneously. It's nuts. They now have orchestra performances, where an entire orchestra plays a piece and every single player is in a different location. And they put it all together. What? Obviously getting too old to be mystified by things like that. But the world now is just unbelievably distracting. There are thousands of channels to view in any given moment. There are hundreds on television, and then there are now tens of thousands of streaming opportunities available in the internet. You could sit in one spot and entertain yourself till you were dead, and you wouldn't have surfed 0.1% of the web. Nothing. There's porn, there's money, there's competition for everything. There are video games without end. We compete in sports, college admissions, and so on. The distractions, endless. With all these loud voices screaming at us, and they scream. I open up my computer to look up The population of Kazakhstan, which actually I did recently for reasons you don't want to know. I look up the population of that, and I'm assaulted, not making this up, by 8 advertisements on the right and the left because I ordered a toe strap from Amazon a month ago. So they give me 8 possible things that I could buy that would be related to towing things with the toe strap. Wow. If I followed those links, I wouldn't be here now. I'd be wasted dead in a chair just following the leads of a toe strap. T-O-W, towing, not a strap for the little digits at the end of your foot. So, with all those loud voices screaming at us, how in the world could we remember what's important? I have a friend in real life who finds himself distracted by all this stuff. Distracted, like as in, it became his life. He would go to work. He would work on computers in a virtual world, and then he would come home and he would spend his life in a virtual world. He was never away from a screen. If you took him away from all screens, he would have a seizure. He was always in a virtual world. And he has come up with a regimen to remind himself of what matters. That's fairly impressive all by itself. Now, yeah, he had some help. But I'm going to tell you the regimen that he came up with because it worked. He was addicted to more forms of video whatever than I could describe to you. And now he's not. How did he do it? Because if you don't know somebody, or you're not a person who's addicted to some kind of device, let's say your phone. Walk into a room and ask people what time it is. Nobody looks at their watch because nobody has one. They pick up their phone, which is, in many people's cases, embedded under the skin in their forearm. So they have immediate access. If you don't know somebody like that, you haven't been paying attention. Or you are that person and you're so addicted that you're not even hearing me right now. So here's his regimen. He watches a video chat every day, like this one. Why? Because I give him the answers to life? Nah, he says, it's a tone. He says he just gets a feel that there's a happier way to live. He says, I get a sense of hope. I feel connected, not only to you as you talk, but I feel connected to the people you're talking to. I realize that there's an entirely different way of living out there, and that's how I want to live. Well, that's just crazy cool, isn't it? That he came up with this? He gets all of that out of watching a video chat. He's not looking for the answers. He's single. He doesn't have any children, and he says, I sometimes get the most out of the segments where you talk about parenting, because he said, emotionally speaking, I'm still a child. And as you talk about what children need to learn, I'm sitting there just lapping this up because I never got those lessons. So I'm listening to children's stuff going, finally, somebody's teaching me how to be happy. So he watches a video chat every day. By the way, I'm not pushing for anybody to do any of this. But I am telling you, here's somebody who is addicted to a virtual world, like addicted like crazy, like the real world didn't exist. And he broke it. He broke the addiction. Stopping any addiction is, well, cause for worldwide celebration. So he watches a video chat every day. He phones, not just texts. Now he texts to find somebody, but he talks to somebody in real love every day. Sometimes he gets in his car or gets on a train and he travels anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, which would have to be a weekend, so he can spend time with somebody in real love. Somebody who gets it. Somebody who knows what makes a happy life, as opposed to what he used to do, which is have stimulating but completely artificial conversations with people represented as avatars with fangs and venom dripping from them during a video game. He said, I didn't feel really close to those people. I thought I did. We get that seduced. But so he talks to somebody in real life every day. He carries in his pocket a collage. If you don't know the word, look it up. Collage. But it's an amalgamation. Well, there's another word you got to look up. It's a thing, a flat surface usually. You could do a collage on a ball, I suppose, where you put a bunch of pictures of different things together in some way that you want. Like a common collage is bits of scenery or members of your family. Picture a Christmas card from somebody who has 10 children, and then just cut out the heads of all the children and the parents, and then just randomly arrange them on a piece of paper and glue them there. That's a collage. Is that a collage? I have to check with the Queen, because I have to admit I've never made one. I probably will die without making one. But he made a collage of photographs that include the heads of all the people with whom he has had unconditionally loving experiences. Do you get how brilliant this is? He gets distracted at work, or he has the feeling that anger is going to bubble up, and he reaches into his pocket and nobody knows what he's doing. People reach into their pockets more now than they ever did in the past. Why? It's usually where they keep their phone. And so he pulls out this little, it's like the size of a 3x5 card, although probably isn't, because nobody uses those anymore. And he just looks at the faces of these people who have loved him, and he just goes, okay, this I know to be true. And he says, most of the time, my anger just goes away. This is pretty smart. This is 3 things he does. And he managed to conquer not one addiction, but about 20. They were related in various ways, but about 20. We need all the help we can get to be happy. And right now, I'm just teaching you one thing you could do in the course of life that could contribute to your happiness, like your whole life. You can review them. I'm not going to repeat the things that he did, because you can hit rewind and listen to them again. It's changed his life. I'm going to make a point that I made either in this video chat or the last one. He did something instead of complaining that his life was miserable and he was alone and nobody liked him and he has no friends, all of which was true. Yeah. Instead of complaining, which is not a step, he did something. And I'll be darned, he trusted in it, and now he's happier. There's one of the many formulas that are just guaranteed to work. If he can do it, I can do it. If he can do it and I can do it, you can do it. And we'll talk some more in a week.